Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Facebook Live today from my office in Remarkable House. And man, have I got something exciting and interesting for you today. As you might know, we also run these recordings of these on our podcast, the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. So we're going to give this just a couple of moments for people to get signed in here, to say hello and all those sorts of things before I dive in and we actually start the live and start it for the purposes of our repurposing it for the podcast. Again, Remarkable Leadership Podcast, remarkablepodcast.com. Today, as you can see, we're going to talk about the connections between a can of Coke and leadership. And so, again, we're going to dive into that in just a moment or two. Say hello if you're here. Let us know that you're here, and we'll get started here momentarily. So greetings to those of you that are joining us. I'm going to pause, and then we're going to actually start the live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Facebook Live simulcast later for the purposes of our Remarkable Leadership Podcast. Today, I am sharing with you, well, let me back up and tell you that a few months ago, I started doing some what I called mashups, where I would take ideas and connect them to leadership. I'd done a few of those on our Remarkable TV in the past. And then we started sort of crowdsourcing those ideas, started asking people to tell us what they thought we ought to connect. And so we're going to move some of those from, hello, Marissa. We're going to move some of those from doing them on our Remarkable TV to doing them here on Facebook Live. And so today, the idea comes from Jose Luis from Brazil. One of our Brazilian viewers said, Kevin, what's the connection between leadership and a can of Coke? And so I have an original Coke here and a 16-ounce Coke. I've never seen a 16-ounce Coke can, but that's what I was able to find this morning. So here we go. We're going to talk about the connections between how do you connect leadership and a can of Coke, straight from Remarkable House after being suggested in Brazil. Now, I shared yesterday with my team that I was going to do this, so they sent me a bunch of ideas, so I'll share those with you first. My team said, well, the connections, Kevin, between Coke and leadership include that we would like a leader to be bubbly and refreshing and invigorating, to which I would say some might, others might not. Most people would probably say that that's what a Coke is, but not everyone maybe wants a bubbly and invigorating leader. But they also said a little more seriously that people want a leader who is real and, you know, the real thing, right? And even more importantly, leaders that don't make change just for change's sake, and that they make change when there's a real purpose and a real value. And some of you are old enough to remember New Coke, when no one really understood what the reason was. And yet they made the change, and of course they changed back. So we want leaders who are real and who thoughtfully make change. We all know that change needs to happen. And one more from our team that said that Coke partners well with others, and we want a leader who partners well with others. So partnering with others, they said it could be partnering with an ice cube, partnering with some other sort of mixer. I'll leave that up to you as to what that mixer might be. So leadership and a can of Coke. So now my thoughts about this. First, I was thinking about the actual can. Before we get to the contents, let's talk about the connection between leadership and the can of Coke. First, a can is sturdy. It's sturdy. It's aluminum, so they can break, but for the most part, they can take a lot of battering before they break. And I think most of us would like to have a leader that, you know, can sort of stand up to a little battering, that sort of is sturdy and can take some of the slings and arrows that might be coming from external forces or from above and shield us as a team from some of those things. I think that's a fair thought. A can of Coke is functional, and so it does its job, and all of us want a leader that will do their job, and I think that that's important. This can is recyclable, and it reminds me that as leaders, you know, there are some leaders that get a little bit too much ego going, feeling a little bit too much of their oats perhaps, and I think it's important for us to realize as leaders that we're all replaceable. There's always another leader that can lead the team successfully, perhaps more successfully than us. And so like the can, leaders are recyclable. And one more thing, there's a message on the Coke cans. I don't know if you've noticed this. Here's the one that's on the can I got today. Maybe it's appropriate. Share a Coke with a pro. And so perhaps we want a leader who's a pro, knows what they're doing. But the reason that I share this is that I think the message on the Coke can is useful because what Coke's trying to do is personalize the experience for the individual to say, hey, this is your can with your name on it or whatever. And I think as leaders, we must be always focusing on personalizing the message to the follower as much as we possibly can. I'm looking down at my notes because I want to make sure I get all of these ideas in. As I go along, feel free to ask questions as I go along. If you have a connection that I haven't made, feel free to jump in for those of you that are live with me on Facebook. And so now maybe what Jose was asking was, Kevin, what about the connection that you have between a leader and the Coke itself, not the can, but the Coke. So I have I have 3 ideas for you about that I think are useful for us as leaders. Reminders, if you will. The first is that one of the reasons people drink this stuff is for the caffeine. It creates a little energy. It's energy producing, right? A Coke is energy producing, and we all want a leader who creates an energy around the team, for the team, helps the team move forward. Man, it's important for us to realize as a leader, that people are looking to us for direction, yes, but also for a sense of energy. And if you believe that enthusiasm is contagious, I would agree with you. And guess what? So is the opposite. Whatever energy we're putting into the system of our team or our organization is going to come back out. So we drink a Coke to get some energy, positive energy, hopefully some energy that's positive that help us move forward. And that's what we want from our leaders as well. Leaders are energy producing, hopefully the right kind of energy. Secondly, I am reminded often that the number one reason that people buy this is to drink it, but they also buy it sometimes to cook with it. When I was a kid, I used to pour it over ice cream and have a ice cream soda. So that's an option, right? And I also know that if you soak a rusty bolt in it, it will take the rust off of the bolt, which means this: Coke is multifunctional. It has multiple things that it can actually do. And listen, I think as leaders, we need to be multifunctional. A little bit like a Swiss Army knife, perhaps, or perhaps a can of Coke. We need to recognize that at different times, our teams need different things from us. Sometimes they need us to lead us toward a vision. Sometimes they need us to roll up our sleeves and go to work. Sometimes they need us to encourage. Sometimes they need us to correct. Sometimes they need us to help bring the team together in collaboration. Sometimes they need us to be communicating a message from above in a clearer way. Sometimes they need us to be leading change. As a leader, we're wearing lots of hats. We're multifunctional. Our teams need us for different things, and we need to be up to the challenge to be doing those different things. Now, one more thing. You probably know that I have in front of me here the original, the classic Coke, but there's more than one kind of Coke. And I'm not even talking about the diets and the caffeine frees. I'm just talking about regular Cokes. And I started making a list. I know that there's a vanilla Coke and an orange vanilla Coke, and I know there's a raspberry Coke. I know there's a cherry Coke. So then I said, well, how many different kinds of Coke are there? And when I Googled it, I didn't find one answer. I found a bunch of different answers. I found that you can go to Atlanta and taste test 100 different flavors of Coke. I don't know if that includes the diets or not. I found other spots that says, well, there's 64 flavors. I found one spot that lets you rank 25 flavors. And it reminded me of some other flavors like key lime and Georgia peach Coke. Yes, it exists. And California raspberry. Yes, it exists. The point is there's a bunch of different flavors of Coca-Cola. Even if you don't count the diets and the caffeine frees and all that stuff. There's the Coke with the cane sugar in it, the Mexican Coke, if you will. There's the Coke that comes in a green can, if I remember right, that's flavored with some other sort of sweetener. Here's the point. Not all of us like the same Coke. Not all of us necessarily are going to love the same leader or find the same leader to be most effective to us. As a leader, we must recognize that there's more than one way to do it. We must be willing to be flexible, and we must be doing our best to help our teams be successful with us as their leader. And We need to recognize that sometimes we're not going to be the perfect leader or coach for every single person. Everyone has a different flavor that they're looking for. And even this, I've talked to lots of people that at one time drank Coke and then moved to Diet Coke, or moved from one flavor to another. It became their new favorite. It was an acquired taste. Here's the thing. If you're leading some folks and the connection isn't quite there, keep working at it, because it may take some time for you to build the connections, for you to build an acquired taste with that team member so that together you can be successful. Lots of flavors. Lots of different ways to lead, lots of different things people are looking for from leaders. It's our job not to bend and flex to every little whim and whimsy, but rather to recognize that we may need to do some different things in order to connect with and be most successful with, and to be refreshing and invigorating for all of the folks that we lead. So there you go. It's a strange sort of request that came from Jose Luis in Brazil, and he's going to get a copy of our journal, our Remarkable Leadership Kevin Eikenberry journal, because he did this. We're going to send one of these to him in Brazil. Here's the thing. If you're watching us now, or if you're watching this later, or if you're listening or watching on the Remarkable Leadership podcast, send us a note. Let us know what you'd like me to mash up together. I've got a bunch of these in the hopper. I won't promise that I'll do every one that people suggest, but the ones that people do, I will send them a copy of the journal, and hopefully we'll get some chance to have a little fun learning about leadership and making some new connections. Yes, leadership and Coke can be connected. We've given you ideas today, both from what's inside the can and from the can itself. So I will leave you with this. If you're a leader, one of the other things that you can do is smile, because when you smile, you change the energy around you and you change people's performance. And Coca-Cola always told us to have a Coke and a smile. I'll leave with that. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you all soon. I'll be back here again with another episode on Facebook Live, which will become another episode on the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. Thanks, everybody.